Hello and welcome. My name is Kylie Walker and I'm the CEO of the Australian Academy of Technology and Engineering, ATSE. I'm delighted to welcome you all this evening as we introduce you to our inspiring new Fellows for 2021. Our Fellows are the beating heart of this academy. Their lifelong pursuit of excellence through applied science, technology or engineering is the Academy's lifeblood. They inspire us to be bold, ambitious and progressive in how we use technology to tackle some of our most urgent challenges, from the COVID-19 pandemic through to climate change. I'm speaking with you tonight from the lands of the Ngunnawal people. In doing so, I acknowledge the deep knowledge forever embedded in traditional custodianship of country and the most ancient scientists and engineers on the planet. We honour Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander elders and innovators of the past and present.
Nena marning anari binjini tika kanya pundu it pina kuna wacha pakaning I tangi walta kana naranga werango meal. Hello, my name is Jack Buckskin. I'm a proud Ghana Naranga and Wirango man. Marning adlu tamperding adlu garni yartanga tikandi. It's good that we acknowledge country wherever we go. Marning adlu tamperding adlu garni yartanga tikandi. Maruchanga adlu kupukiana portkana kumagani mini I yalara. Ngawangandi mani putting adlu yartana. On behalf of my people and ancestors, I welcome people that are sitting on Ghana country to the lands that we stand on and that we call home. Kumari yacha mena, kumari pindi mena yacha yartanga tikandi. Marni na putting adlu ku yartana. Kumari yacha yartananku. Marni na putting adlu ku yartana. Kumaninku mukabanga. Ninku bokana. Bukiana. Mena tampinga. It's good that we acknowledge, but also those lands that we stand on, that all of us are gathering on Aboriginal lands. And for all of us to pay respects and acknowledge our elders, our ancestors, and the people of the country that we stand on. I welcome people to my place, but it's also our duty as people to acknowledge the spiritual world and people that we gather and live on their country. The digital welcome is a lot like the spiritual connection that we have as people to country. It's being in presence, but not in presence at the same time. So by welcoming you to my place, I'm honoured that I have that opportunity, but also for others, a constant reminder that we stand on Aboriginal lands.
Welcome to everyone joining us tonight from across the country. Despite the challenging circumstances so many of us face due to the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, we're delighted to come together virtually to celebrate our new Fellows. I'd love to see you all posting on social media throughout the presentation from wherever you are, with the hashtag showing on your screen. I'd also like to take this moment to mention the generosity of our sponsors for this year's New Fellows event. Without them, we would not be able to bring you the show tonight.
Gold sponsor, Department of Defence. Broadcast partner, Screencraft. Tonight,
Doreen, Hugh and I have the privilege of introducing you to a group of 27 trailblazing individuals as we welcome them to our family and induct them as Fellows of the Australian Academy of Technology and Engineering. Our Fellows, now over 900 strong, represent the most accomplished, innovative and passionate technologists, scientists, entrepreneurs, engineers, academics, leaders and advocates for positive change and progress. I call them our heart because their excellence guides the work of the Academy and sets our direction as we grapple with increasingly complex problems. They've helped shape the present and the future. And tonight we welcome new lifeblood into the Academy, fueling our mission and pursuit of technological and scientific progress. Each new Fellow has made significant contributions to growing Australia's applied science, technology and engineering capability. Tonight, we recognise their contributions and their leadership. It inspires the Academy to be bold as we rise to the present challenges. They inspire young and increasingly diverse people to pursue STEM career trajectories and to contribute to an innovative and progressive future for all Australians. It's now my pleasure to introduce Professor Emeritus Doreen Thomas, the Vice President of Membership for the Australian Academy of Technology and Engineering. Doreen will introduce the first group of new Fellows.
Thank you, Kylie. On behalf of the Academy, I'd like to congratulate you all on your election to the Fellowship and welcome you to ATSE. As a Fellow myself, I can share it is a vibrant Academy, striving for technological progress in Australia by providing evidence-based advice, guidance and encouragement to multiple audiences, from the government right through to school children. It is a great honour to be elected as a Fellow of this Academy. Tonight we honour your achievements and welcome you to this distinguished group of individuals working for the betterment of our way of life, both in Australia and abroad. It is my pleasure to now introduce you to our first group of new Fellows. Hugh will introduce the second group, following our keynote speech for this evening.
My name's Louise Adams and I'm the Chief Operating Officer at Oricon. I'm particularly passionate about the role that good infrastructure design can play in creating better societal outcomes for the communities that infrastructure is there to serve, and therefore putting people that are going to use that infrastructure at the heart of the design process. I think it's a privilege to be able to be part of the group that helps to outline the pathway for Australia to thrive into the future.
My work is involved in the ways in which Australia continues to play a role as a major energy powerhouse, but this time based on renewable energy. I look forward to working with my ATSE colleagues to try and ensure that not only does Australia have the best, most efficient, most economic transition in its energy systems, but to ensure that we also play a major role as a world powerhouse in renewable energy.
Something I'm passionate about is driving innovation. Most people take for granted that data magically appears on their phone, and they don't appreciate the huge amount of engineering and infrastructure that sits behind that. I love working with young people to help them understand the impact they can have on society and the world if they pursue careers in STEM.
Hi, I'm Sandeep Biswas. I'm the Managing Director and CEO of Newcrest Mining. Our company's purpose is to create a brighter future for people through safe and sustainable mining. Is how do you do it safely? How do you do it sustainably with view to the environment, to fresh water, biodiversity, to climate change? Use all that knowledge that I've gained globally and bring it back and contribute to a team in order to make Australia a better place.
Hello, my name is Elizabeth Croft. I am a professor of mechanical and electrical and computer systems engineering and dean of engineering at Monash University. My work is all about robotics and how robots make our lives safer, more efficient, and how we can make robots easier to work with.
My research is on construction materials, especially concrete. Production of concrete accounts for 5 to 10% global carbon emission. The design life for modern concrete is only 100 years. Roman concrete can last for 1,000 years. So we can make a more durable concrete. So we can have more sustainable and livable Australia.
My research focuses on carbon farming. What is carbon farming and the push towards low emissions or carbon neutral agriculture? All sectors have to make their contribution, including our food production centre. We're seeing an increase in interest in sustainable agriculture, regenerative agricultural approaches into the future, and that's inspiring the next generation to get involved more in being part of the solution.
So my research is about how to manufacture tablets. It's a lot of working with industry, understanding the manufacturing problems and figuring out the gap between what our science actually understands and what the industry is already having to deal with, and trying to close that gap in the lab. I'm really looking forward to working with all of the other ATSE Fellows and members on the important initiatives that I've been watching ATSE work on from afar.
Every day when you wake up, you find a set of new challenges, the problem you need to solve. Each single cell like a universe. There's a lot of components that interact with each other. But at the moment, we keep pushing the technology and using the new technology to understand this complexity. And that actually drives me to learn new things for this nation.
I'm James Johnson. I'm the Chief Executive Officer at Geoscience Australia. I'm really honoured to be elected as a Fellow of ATSE. It's a wonderful platform to bring a voice and make my contribution based on my experiences and my expertise. The part that I'm most proud of out of my career is the way I have managed to connect different parts of science together to create something new and innovative.
My work is about ensuring that Australia is developing technologies such as artificial intelligence and robotics that is geared to help us solve some of the grand challenges that we as humans can't solve alone. My work has also been about highlighting the importance that we include women in the development of artificial intelligence and robot technologies.
My name is Dale Lambert. I am the Chief of Cyber and Electronic Warfare Division within Defence Science and Technology in the Department of Defence. Information warfare has become my most recent focus. In the industrial age, people directly controlled their industrial machine. In the information age, people instead issue commands to information environments. Part of my role is to ensure that Australia is protected in this new era of information.
I'm Chen Da Li, Professor and Director of the Western Crop Genetic Lines. My research focuses on developing breeding technology to reduce next-generation crop varieties. I had a dream to double the barley production in West Australia in 20 years. Now we realize this dream. It is a great honor to be the Fellow of the Academy.
My area of research is in the field called fluid mechanics, and my expertise is in a state of the flow known as turbulence. You might see it when smoke becomes very chaotic. That's a turbulent state. The STEM-based areas are underrepresented in policy-making bodies, such as the Australian Parliament. Organisations like ATSE really are at the forefront, and so I'm incredibly proud to be part of that.
Welcome to our first group of new fellows. We'll now have a few brief videos from the sponsors of tonight's event.
Hello and welcome. My name is Hugh Bradler, and I'm the President of the Australian Academy of Technology and Engineering. Before we move into the second half of the evening, I'd also like to echo Kylie and Doreen's words. It is an honour and a privilege to be elected as a Fellow of the Academy. However, it does come with a responsibility. We all aspire to ensure Australia remains a leading 21st century technological society. Today's challenges are becoming more complex, more urgent, more globally interconnected, multidisciplinary, and politically contentious. Together, we have the minds and the means to address these issues, and I'm particularly excited by your appointment tonight as you represent new ideas that will help us to continue to grow to be an academy fit for the 21st century. In that regard, I believe that the 21st century is making new demands on learned academies. You can't have scientific and technological progress without social progress and social equity. In order to have impact, we need to expand our horizons and constantly move beyond our comfort zone. I'm particularly pleased to see so many new fellows that will challenge us as we move into the future. It is now my distinct pleasure to introduce the second group of new fellows.
When we start looking at sustainability, the health of the nation in terms of our environment, how we're going to have healthy people and employment opportunities, be able to generate wealth within our country for everybody to live the lives that they want to lead, we are at the absolute centre of that. It's very easy to come up with all the problems. The solutions to those problems are what really matters.
What we're doing is basically designing how to put molecules together and realising the method for doing that, and that's incredibly important. Most of this work is not in sort of the type of plastic materials that everyone associates with polymers, like packaging materials, applications in the biomedical field, in drug delivery and polymer therapeutics. It's certainly humbling and a privilege to be considered as amongst the experts as an ATSE Fellow.
I'm Andrew Nash. I'm the Senior Vice President of Research at CSL and the Chief Scientific Officer. In CSL, we look for patients that are suffering from severe disease and think about ways to develop new therapies that can help ease that suffering. There's many experts that are members of the Academy that have made a great contribution over many years, and to join that group and to contribute along with them is a great honour.
We need to demystify STEM and make it an integrated part of education. That way we're going to bring the empowering of STEM skills through to a very wide cross-section of businesses that are going to need those skills to survive in the future. Universities have such an important role in generating graduates that will make a major contribution to the community, and their STEM capacity in the future is going to be critical for transforming business.
The impact of the work I've done in building these computer-based models or computer games to help farmers make better decisions has been seen by the adoption of the software by farmers, farmer advisors and researchers. These have become mainstream tools now. I'm very honoured to be elected a Fellow of the Academy and looking forward to using this position of influence to try and drive better decisions around science and science policy.
Understanding the dynamics of the fire really gives us ability to better predict what these fires are going to do, and that then gives us better warning systems for the public and for fire crews out dealing with the fire. Joining ATSE is a real honour, and I think it's a really good opportunity to go out and be part of the wider public discussion around science and technology. You know, be part of that conversation and explain to people what science is and what it can do.
I'm a mechanical engineer originally and have spent my career working as a pharmaceutical engineer in the life sciences sector. I've worked in small molecules in big pharma and large molecules in the biotechnology industry. In my current role, my organisation has responsibility for a third of Australia's clinical trials. It's an honour to join ATSE. It's incredibly exciting being part of a community that has the broader impact.
The two amazing role models I've had in my life were my grandfather and my father. My dad, he built me a computer when I was 8 years old, and that really set me off as a computer scientist. I spent time at Microsoft working on their search engine, a time at eBay working on the most popular marketplace for buying things that there's ever been. And all of those products have had a really profound impact on how Australians shop online, search on the internet, and make their way throughout the world.
I'm passionate about digital health and cybersecurity. It is very important to me to ensure that your information is protected. I'm also passionate about the fact that we need to make solutions to our problems practical and something that everybody can use. I am very honoured to be joining the Academy.
We model materials at the atomic and molecular level, so we better understand the structure. We also help design water evaporation protection, keeping Australian reservoirs full at the time of drought. I'm very humbled and honoured to be able to have a say in the future of Australia.
My research is focused on improving the resilience and safety of engineered structures. We have developed reliable systems to repair and strengthen aging steel bridges using advanced composite material. Well, it's all very exciting because we are contributing to reducing greenhouse gas emission and helping achieving United Nations Sustainable Development Goals.
I have had some success in expanding Indigenous studies so that any student is able to join in a class where some aspect of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander traditions are taught. I've been endeavouring to improve outcomes for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, and it is my great hope that fellows in the Academy will discuss and assist in these endeavours.
I work on membrane technologies for desalination and wastewater reuse. Water scarcity and water shortages are a major issue in Australia. There is a critical need to improve the efficiency of these technologies and reduce their overall cost and environmental impact. I'm very humbled to be elected as Fellow of ATSE, and I look forward to collaborating with Australian researchers to solve some of the problems related to water in Australia.
Ladies and gentlemen, in normal times, we would celebrate the induction of new fellows at a gala dinner. Hopefully, science and technology in the form of the vaccine will allow us to do that from next year. At our dinner, it is customary to have a distinguished speaker, and despite not being able to gather this year, we continue that tradition. We're delighted that tonight's speaker is not only a person of great distinction, but also one of our new fellows. Distinguished Professor Marcia Langton is a descendant of the Iman people of central and southwestern Queensland. She is an anthropologist, a geographer, a public intellectual, and has made enormous contribution to Australia. Professor Langton is recognized internationally for her groundbreaking work modernizing the mining industry's engagement with Indigenous people, particularly in the difficult area of negotiating and settling agreements. Her research has established a body of data examining public and private sector practices of negotiation and settlement with Indigenous groups in Australia, Canada, New Zealand, South Africa, and elsewhere. Professor Langton has contributed to education policy nationally and established new courses of study at universities, ensuring the inclusion of Indigenous students and Indigenous knowledge in education. She is a Fellow of the Academy of Social Sciences in Australia, and today becomes a Fellow of the Australian Academy of Technology and Engineering. Thank you, Professor Langton.
Hello, everyone. I pay tribute to the Wurundjeri traditional owners and their elders, past and present. I live and work on their country and enjoy the fruits of their long and hard struggle for First Nations rights and dignity, and for recognition and a treaty. I am honoured by the invitation to join the Australian Academy of Technology and Engineering as an Honorary Fellow. I grew up in Queensland when being Aboriginal was legally a form of crime and the legislation governing our lives, a draconian hangover from the 19th century frontier. As a descendant of the Iman people of central Queensland, I became curious about the history of my people and undertook a life of study and research to answer questions about Australia's past. A body of questions that has grown and grown over the decades. As an engaged anthropologist and geographer conducting research in Indigenous Australia, the challenge of achieving the recognition of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander knowledge systems has become a central theme of my work. I believe this challenge is of great relevance to the Fellows of the Academy. For over 200 years, Indigenous Australians have hosted and guided scientists and scientific expeditions seeking to understand the environments, flora, fauna and climate of this continent, as well as the cultures of the Indigenous peoples themselves. Aboriginal knowledge and science have contributed to our understanding of the shape of Australia and the remarkable changes that occurred when the seas rose following the last ice age 7,000 years ago. Such collaborations between Aboriginal people and scientists have produced many rich and detailed pictures of the ancient past. This has resulted in a vast literature on Australian life, but until recently, much of it was read only by the experts. Some scientists and researchers have recognised the importance of these traditions and their relevance, especially in relation to understanding and living with our environments and climate. There is also greater respect today for the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who manage land and water. Scientists and others are often involved in research projects to help protect these environments and to find ways to make our traditions applicable to the much-changed landscapes of today. Despite the terrible impact of colonialism and subsequent policies, our survival owes much to our own traditions of science and ability to adapt to new technologies and social and economic threats. One of our greatest successes has been to preserve our land management and cultural traditions by insisting that we have a right to do so. Now there is much to share, and it is best learned from the Indigenous stewards of this land. We are the descendants of the first people to come here 6 millennia ago. Our history represents a fifth of the total of human history, and the evidence of it should be regarded as a world cultural and scientific treasure. Cultural burning is an instance of the great relevance of our knowledge systems to our present dilemmas. Cultural burning encompasses social and scientific Aboriginal traditions of fire use as a technology to shape environments and to quell wildfires. In the Australian summer of 2019 to 2020, wildfires exploded in the forests and scrublands with deadly and devastating consequences for people in the path of the fires, our wildlife and environments. For some species, this was the tipping point, and more have become endangered. Australian extinction rates were already among the highest in the world before the Black Summer. There can be no doubt that the colonisation of Australia by the British is correlated with species extinction in a broad sequential wave beginning from the first settled areas in southeastern Australia to the present day in much of northern Australia, and the loss of Indigenous land management, particularly of fire. And the losses are continuing. In early 2020, the Australian government established the Royal Commission into Natural Disaster Arrangements to inquire into the potential for Australian governments to better coordinate their responses to limit the deadly and destructive impacts of bushfires. Cultural burning provides a part of the solution to this ongoing disaster, as the Royal Commission found. The Royal Commission report is an impressive document containing 80 recommendations. In relation to Indigenous land and fire management and natural disaster resilience, the Commission urged in its recommendations that Australian state, territory and local governments should engage further with traditional owners to explore the relationship between Indigenous land and fire management and natural disaster resilience, and they should explore further opportunities to leverage Indigenous land and fire management insights in the development, planning and execution of public land management activities. These recommendations were based on evidence from across the country. Allow me to give you an example of Indigenous engineering and technological skills, now acknowledged by UNESCO and inscribed on the World Heritage List. Budge Bim is an Aboriginal cultural heritage landscape in southwest Victoria. It is the home of the Gunditjmara people. They have managed this remarkable environment for thousands of years. Their land management agency, Gunditjmiring, has developed a master plan for this landscape and nominated it to the UNESCO's World Heritage listing. They are the only Indigenous people in the world to successfully nominate a highly valued part of their country to this listing. citing the cultural values of their Budge Bim cultural landscape. The landscape was created by volcanic lava flow from Budge Bim that erupted 37,000 years ago, leaving a rugged terrain of basalt rises, swampy depressions and waterways. The Gunditjmara manipulated this volcanic landscape that extends from Budge Bim to the sea and encompasses a series of waterways including Lake Condah and the Fitzroy River. From at least 6,500 years ago, the evidence shows that they engineered the volcanic lava flow from the eruption. They built the oldest and largest aquaculture system in the world. They managed and harvested the short-finned eels, whose migratory route bring them to this area annually, creating an economy and culture that thrived with the great natural wealth that they harnessed. They built houses with stone walls at their base and permanent settlements arranged in family groups along the waterways and channels, expanding them in each generation and passing on from generation to generation a rich water world of engineered channels, ponds and villages. Elsewhere in Aboriginal Australia, other groups of Aboriginal traditional owners are maintaining our natural and cultural heritage. I am convinced of the need for data-driven planning and decision-making and the crucial role of good data in several major challenges. Closing the gap on the high levels of Indigenous disadvantage across all socio-economic indicators of health, well-being and the capabilities necessary for participation in our society and economy. Efforts to close these gaps must draw on the lessons of history to understand how these extreme levels of disadvantage came about. Data use and Indigenous data governance by the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people in a range of fields including health and wellbeing, incarceration and education have become a core subject of my work. Indigenous people have built a body of data assets through our development of community-controlled corporations that deliver services to our populations. Drawing on my anthropological training and long interest in our history, and in my associations with demographers and others in the STEM community, I have learnt that Indigenous data sovereignty and data governance are essential to progress the challenges that we face and to advance the lives of all Australians. In less than 2 years, during the COVID-19 pandemic, we have become aware of the power of data as never before. We owe our good fortune in escaping the death rates experienced in other countries to the scientific expertise wielded to measure and shape responses to this shocking global threat to the health and well-being of humanity. The response of Australian governments to the COVID-19 pandemic has involved daily reporting of data. These data have been used to manage the spread of the virus and the pathway to a highly vaccinated populace. Australian governments have demonstrated overall competence and capability in confronting and dealing with the worst pandemic in 100 years. Imagine if the governmental power and the scientific and medical expertise brought to bear during this pandemic were mobilised to address the other existential threats to humanity: the climate crisis, species extinction, pollution, poverty, and injustice. The response of the First Nations health sector to the pandemic has been remarkable. Professor Fiona Stanley has noted that not only did they save hundreds of cases and prevent deaths, they avoided significant hospital and intensive care costs. This response, she said, is the best of any Indigenous group in the world, with many having devastating outcomes. And more importantly, Professor Stanley raised the question, how did they do it? The Aboriginal community-controlled health services swung into action across the country. Their outstanding health professional and organisational leadership rapidly implemented best practice across all Aboriginal community-controlled health and welfare organisations. With their public health training, they knew exactly what they had to do to protect communities and to manage the disease if it occurred. This was done by setting up trusted collaborations with relevant state, territory and federal government departments to provide advice on all aspects of the pandemic response. This response deserves close analysis to guide future policies and practices. My goal is to ensure that curricula across our education sector incorporates Indigenous knowledge and informs Australians of the relevance of this ancestral legacy to our society today. By developing new courses of study at universities and ensuring the inclusion of Indigenous students, I have hoped to achieve recognition of education's critical role in Aboriginal cultural survival. I hope you will join me in these endeavours. I thank you for the honour of Honorary Fellowship in the Academy and for listening to me.
Thank you, Marcia, for your stimulating address and for challenging us with new ideas. And thank you to all our new fellows for giving us a taste of the important work you're doing. Your fellowship within the Academy recognizes your vision, your leadership, and your excellence. You have continued to innovate and create solutions to complex problems during the ongoing global challenge of the COVID-19 pandemic and the clear and present danger we experience due to climate change. We look forward to collaborating with you as we aim to help Australians understand and apply technology to the benefit of society and the environment. Before we wrap up the evening, I'd like to take this moment to thank all of our sponsors for your contribution, because it's with your support that we're able to celebrate the induction of our new fellows with everyone tonight. Thanks everyone, and once more, thanks for joining us.